What if the stories of fallen angels, giant Nephilim, and a world-destroying flood weren't just myths? What if they were real history, a story you can test and verify today? The evidence is all around us, from ancient texts to the very rocks beneath our feet. This isn't just another theory. Using strict science observable, repeatable, and applying Occam's razor, we'll see how one single hypothesis explains it all. The rocks cry out, and they tell a story of rebellion, judgment, and survival. This is the true story of the Watchers and the Flood. It all begins with a group of divine beings called the Watchers. The book of Enoch and Genesis both refer to them as the sons of God, or in Hebrew, Beni Elohim. In the Old Testament, every time this phrase appears, it refers to heavenly beings, not humans. The chances of it meaning godly men are statistically tiny. From their heavenly post, they watched humanity grow and spread across the earth. One place in particular, Mount Hermon, the highest peak in the region, served as their vantage point. It was an ancient holy mountain, a place you can still visit today. And as they watched, they began to desire. Their fascination turned into a decision, a rebellion. Led by a chief named Semyaza, 200 of these watchers decided to break heaven's most sacred rule. They wanted to take human women as their wives. But they were afraid. They knew the punishment for such a transgression would be severe, so they made a pact. As the book of Enoch describes, they gathered on the summit of Mount Hermon and swore a binding oath, cursing themselves if any should turn back. This wasn't a rash decision. It was a conspiracy. The names of their 19 chiefs, like Semyaza and Azazel, are recorded, and intriguingly, these names pop up independently in other ancient cultures. The probability of this being a random invention is almost zero. The rebellion had begun. They descended from the mountain and took the wives they had chosen. And from these forbidden unions, a new race was born, the Nephilim. The name means the fallen ones, but you might know them better as giants. Genesis describes them as mighty men who were of old, men of renown. They were raised on earth, a brood of powerful supernatural hybrids. And here is a crucial detail from Genesis chapter 6. It says there were giants in the earth in those days. And also after that, this little phrase is key. It tells us that the giant bloodline survived the flood. Occam's razor suggests the simplest explanation. They were the direct, hybrid offspring of this forbidden union, and their genetic legacy would continue. But the Watchers did more than just create a race of giants. They taught humanity forbidden knowledge. The book of Enoch lists what they shared. Azazel taught the art of metallurgy, how to forge swords, knives, and shields. This wasn't a slow, natural discovery. The archaeological record shows a sudden, inexplicable explosion of technology during the Bronze Age. Advanced metal weapons and complex dyes appear almost overnight, without the expected gradual evolution. The odds of this being a coincidence are less than 1%. Other Watchers taught sorcery, enchantments, and the secrets of the constellations. Humanity was changed forever, armed with knowledge it was never meant to have. The consequences were catastrophic. The giant Nephilim had voracious appetites. They consumed all of the earth's resources. When the food ran out, they turned on humanity, devouring people, and according to Enoch, even drinking their blood. This wasn't just physical destruction. It was a spiritual and genetic corruption. The Bible says all flesh had corrupted its way upon the earth. Violence and wickedness spread everywhere. And this story isn't unique to Hebrew texts. Myths of cannibalistic giants exist in cultures all over the globe. The statistical likelihood of all these cultures independently inventing the exact same story is incredibly low. All of creation had turned to evil. The devastation reached a point where God himself could no longer stand it. Genesis chapter 6 gives a heart-wrenching account. God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. The text says it grieved him in his heart. The perfect creation had been twisted and defiled beyond recognition. God resolved to destroy what he had made mankind, beasts, creeping things, and the birds of the air. It was a declaration of total reset. But amidst the pervasive corruption, one family line, one genetic thread remained pure. And that made all the difference. God acted to preserve this uncorrupted line. He sent the angel Uriel to a man named Noah. The book of Enoch gives a fascinating detail, describing the infant Noah as strange-looking, with brilliant white hair and eyes that lit up the room, hinting at his pure, uncorrupted genetics. Uriel delivered a terrifying warning. A global deluge was coming to wipe the slate clean, and Noah's family was chosen to survive. This provides a clean, simple explanation for how humanity could be repopulated after such a cataclysmic event. One righteous, genetically pure line was preserved to carry on. The stage was set for the greatest rescue mission in history. The instructions were specific. God told Noah to build an ark of gopher wood. Its dimensions were precise: 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. He was to seal it inside and out with pitch to make it waterproof. For years, perhaps as long as 120 years, Noah and his sons worked on this colossal vessel. All the while, he preached to the people around him, warning them of the coming judgment. But they didn't believe him. The Apostle Peter calls him a preacher of righteousness, implying his message was met with mockery and disbelief. Imagine the scene: a man building a giant boat in the middle of dry land, warning of a flood unlike anything the world had ever seen. As construction finished, the next phase began. God sent the animals to the ark. It wasn't 2 of every single species, which would be impossible. The text says they came according to their kind. This means a pair from the canine kind, the feline kind, and so on. Think of it as saving the ancestral families, not every single breed. For large animals like dinosaurs, it's likely they brought juveniles, which were much smaller and would fit easily. There was plenty of room. But there's a dark twist. Noah chose wives for his sons from the people around them, and it appears one of these women carried the dormant giant gene, ensuring the Nephilim bloodline would reappear. After that, then the moment arrived. Noah, his family, and all the animals were inside. And Genesis tells us something profound. The Lord shut him in. God himself closed the door. Then the flood was unleashed. This wasn't just rain. The fountains of the great deep broke open, and the windows of heaven were opened. Tectonic plates ripped apart, forming the mid-Atlantic ridge and pushing up every major mountain range on Earth. The evidence is undeniable. We find marine fossils on the highest mountain peaks. We see vast sedimentary layers deposited rapidly across continents, trapping fossils mid-fight or mid-meal. We find polystrate trees cutting through multiple layers that supposedly took millions of years to form. It all points to one massive global hydraulic catastrophe. When the waters finally receded, the ark came to rest in the mountains of Ararat. The first thing Noah did was build an altar many now believe is the site, known today as Göbekli Tepe. Humanity began again. But because one of Noah's daughters-in-law carried the Nephilim gene, the giants returned. The rebellion of the Watchers was ancient, but its consequences echoed through history. Their plan to corrupt all of creation was vast, but God's plan to preserve a remnant was greater. He judged the world, but saved humanity through one faithful family. The story is written not just in ancient books, but in the very fabric of our world. Thanks for watching. If you want to dive deeper, make sure to like and subscribe.